They always leave the same way. My mother's voice echoed in my memory as I, Lauren, stared at my phone at 2:47 a.m. First, they take what matters most. Then, they try to break your spirit. 25 years ago, those words had been her only response when my father abandoned us. Now, as I carefully moved through our darkened house, trying not to wake my 1-year-old daughter Lily sleeping in her crib, I realized she had been warning me all along. The house was silent except for Lily's soft breathing and the gentle hum of the baby monitor. My screen lit up with a new email notification. Sender, Michael. Subject, moving forward. The timestamp, 2:47 a.m., matched exactly with the moment my father had sent his final email to my mother all those years ago. Some patterns, it seems, run deeper than we know. My hands were steady as I opened the email, steadier than they had any right to be. The first image that loaded was a photo, my husband of 5 years wrapped around a young blonde woman who couldn't have been older than 20. They were standing in front of our lake house, the vacation home we'd bought just last year. The same home where we'd spent countless weekends planning our future together. The house is mine now, the email declared. I've already moved in with Madison. My lawyer will be sending over the divorce papers. Don't bother fighting it, the deed is in my name. There was a postscript that made my blood run cold. I've seen how you turned out just like your mother. Always working, never home. Madison knows how to be a real family. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter, my mind drifting back to the last conversation I'd had with my mother before she passed away 2 years ago. Lauren, she'd said, her voice weak but her eyes sharp as ever, promise me something. When the signs appear, and they will, don't make my mistake. Don't let them see you break. The soft glow of Lily's nightlight spilled into the hallway as I walked back upstairs. She was still sleeping peacefully, her tiny hands clutched around the stuffed elephant Michael had bought her the day she was born. I picked up my laptop from the bedside table and settled into the armchair beside her crib. My mother had taught me one more lesson before she died: always keep receipts. Opening my email, I began typing 2 simple sentences in reply. You might want to check those property records again, Michael. Some patterns run deeper than you know. I hit send, then turned to my daughter with a smile. Michael had always underestimated me, just like my father had underestimated my mother. He probably thought I'd break down crying, maybe beg him to reconsider. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail: I was the one who'd insisted his name be on the deed, for tax purposes. Looking back, I should have recognized the signs sooner. They were all there, playing out like a script I'd watched my father follow 25 years ago. The frequent business trips to the lake house over the past few months, claiming he needed peace and quiet to work on some big corporate merger. The late-night phone calls he'd take in our home office. The way he'd grown defensive whenever I asked about his work, snapping that I wouldn't understand the complexities of corporate finance. I looked at Lily, still peaceful in her dreams, unaware that her father had just tried to destroy our world with a single email. She had Michael's eyes, but in that moment, I saw my own determination reflected in her tiny features. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about breaking a pattern that had haunted my family for too long. Within minutes, I'd emailed my lawyer the documentation proving I'd purchased the lake house with my own funds. Then I pulled up the security camera feed I'd had installed at the property, another lesson learned from my mother's mistakes. The cameras had caught everything, every visit, every guest, every betrayal. Madison might have been basking in her victory at the lake house, but she had no idea she was starring in a video that would feature prominently in what was to come. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, my assistant. Lauren, you need to see this. Attached was a link to Madison's Instagram profile. There, going back months, were dozens of photos of her with Michael, some taken in our bedroom at the lake house. The latest post showed her flashing a massive diamond ring, my grandmother's ring, the one Michael had promised we'd give to Lily on her 18th birthday. The dates on the photos matched perfectly with his business trips. Every time he'd said he was working late, every weekend he'd claimed he needed to check on the lake house, it had all been lies. My hands shaking, I opened my banking app. That's when the second blow hit. Lily's college fund was empty. Every penny, nearly $115,000, gone. Transferred out yesterday to an account I didn't recognize. I walked back to Lily's crib, gently touching her soft curls. Just like your mother, Michael had said in his email. He meant it as an insult, but looking at my sleeping daughter, I felt a surge of pride. Yes, I was just like my mother, in ways Michael couldn't begin to understand. She had taught me to always have a backup plan, to never trust completely, to keep detailed records of everything. Jessica's next message made my screen light up again. More screenshots from Madison's private Facebook page appeared. The girl had been bragging to her friends about landing an older man, and how they planned to start fresh, once the divorce was final. There were even messages joking about how oblivious I was, too busy with my mommy routine, to notice what was happening. I looked at the time, 3:33 a.m. The same time showing on the security camera feed from the lake house, where Madison was currently making herself at home in my space, wearing my clothes, using my things. I watched through the cameras as she picked up a framed photo of Lily and carelessly tossed it aside. That was the moment something shifted inside me. I opened my laptop and began typing emails, to my lawyer, my bank, my accountant. Each message was clear, precise, calculated. No emotion, just facts and figures. Just like my mother had taught me. We'll show them a different pattern, I whispered to Lily, who stirred slightly in her sleep. One they never saw coming. The security feed from the lake house flickered on my laptop screen at 7 a.m. Through the grainy night vision footage, I watched as Michael's car pulled up to the driveway. He wasn't alone. Madison stepped out, but there was someone else, a man in an expensive suit I didn't recognize. They were carrying boxes, lots of them. I immediately called Catherine, my lawyer. Catherine, I spoke quietly into my phone, my eyes fixed on the screen. Are you seeing this? My lawyer's voice came through, tense and focused. Keep recording. Every box they take is evidence. I watched as they carried out artwork, electronics, and several heavy-looking file boxes from my home office. Then something caught my eye that made my blood freeze. Wait, I leaned closer to the screen. That painting, zoom in on what Michael's carrying. Catherine's sharp intake of breath matched my own. It was my mother's favorite piece, a small but valuable artwork she'd left me in her will. More importantly, it was listed as a corporate asset in my company's books. That's not just theft, Catherine's voice hardened. That's corporate fraud. Lauren, check your business accounts. Now. My hands flew across the keyboard, logging into my company's banking portal. Error. Access denied. I tried again. Same result. A cold realization washed over me, someone had changed my passwords. I've been locked out, I told Catherine, fighting to keep my voice steady. In the background, Lily started stirring in her crib. They're trying to take control of my company. Lauren, Catherine's tone changed. There's something else you need to see. Check your email. The message that popped up made my heart stop. It was from my bank, a transfer confirmation for $345,000, moved in the early hours of the morning to an account in the Cayman Islands. The authorization appeared to have my digital signature, but I had never approved this transfer. They're not just taking things, Catherine said grimly. They're trying to empty every account before you can stop them. But Lauren, look at the timing of these transfers. This kind of coordinated attack, this was planned months ago. Lily's crying grew louder. As I picked her up, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, urgent. Madison just went live on Instagram. You're going to want to see this. The live stream showed Madison in my lake house master bedroom, surrounded by my clothes, my jewelry, my life. She was speaking to her followers, so excited to finally share our big news. Michael's promotion to CFO is just the beginning. We're planning to renovate this whole place, starting with getting rid of all his ex's tacky decorations. My jaw clenched as she picked up a framed photo of Lily and me. And of course, we'll be updating these old pictures. Michael says Lily will love having a young, fun mom around. The feed suddenly cut off. My phone rang immediately, Jessica again. Lauren, I've got something. Madison just slipped up big time. In the background of her video, there was an open laptop showing corporate merger documents. I got screenshots before she ended the stream. I switched back to the lake house security feed. The man in the suit was now clearly visible, talking intensely with Michael on the back patio. The morning sun illuminated his face, and I felt my breath catch. I knew that face. He was the CEO of our biggest corporate rival. Catherine, my voice was ice cold now. I think I know what's really going on. This isn't just about the divorce. They're trying to take everything, my company, my assets, my daughter, before I can expose what they're planning. Lauren, listen carefully, Catherine's voice was urgent. We need to move fast, but we have to be smart. They're expecting you to fall apart, just like my mother did, I finished. But they forgot something crucial. I looked down at Lily, now quiet in my arms, her tiny hand gripping my finger. History doesn't always repeat itself. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Jessica had set up a command center in my home office, multiple screens monitoring everything from bank transactions to social media feeds. Catherine was coordinating with a team of forensic accountants, tracking every suspicious movement of money. A notification popped up on my phone, another email from Michael. This time, his tone had changed. I know you're watching the cameras. Let's talk about this like adults. Lily deserves better than a messy court battle. I was about to delete it when Jessica called out, Lauren, look at this. She'd managed to recover deleted posts from Madison's private social media accounts. The images made my stomach turn. Madison wearing my mother's jewelry, posing in my lake house master bedroom, all dated months ago. But it was the caption that caught my attention. Soon everything will be officially mine. Uncle Thomas says the merger will take care of any complications. Uncle Thomas? Catherine's voice crackled through the speakerphone. Wait, Thomas Reynolds? The CEO they're meeting with? The pieces suddenly clicked into place. This wasn't just an affair, it was a calculated corporate takeover. Madison wasn't some random young woman, she was the CEO's niece, placed deliberately in Michael's path. The security feed beeped again. Michael and Thomas were now in my home office at the lake house, pulling files from my private safe. I watched, my anger turning to cold satisfaction, as they discovered the safe's hidden compartment was empty. Looking for these? I whispered to the screen, patting the stack of documents beside me, the real merger papers, the ones showing their planned hostile takeover of my company. I'd moved them months ago, when Michael first started acting strange. Just then, Lily started crying upstairs. As I turned to go to her, Jessica grabbed my arm. Lauren, Michael just posted something. My blood ran cold as I read his public message, concerned about my wife's mental state. She's been acting erratic, making wild accusations. Sadly, this behavior makes me question her fitness as a mother. He was trying to set me up, painting me as an unstable mother to build a custody case. It was exactly what my father had done to my mother. Not this time, I muttered, pulling out my phone. I dialed Michael's number, putting it on speaker. He answered on the first ring, his voice smooth and condescending. Finally ready to be reasonable? Actually, I kept my voice steady, I'm calling to give you one chance. Return Lily's college fund, and we can discuss terms. He laughed, the sound echoing through the phone. You're in no position to make demands. Check your email, my lawyers have already filed for emergency custody. They're very concerned about your emotional stability. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Interesting timing. My lawyers just received some fascinating security footage. You and Thomas planning a corporate takeover in my lake house? That's not going to look good in court. The line went silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its smoothness. You're bluffing. Those cameras were disabled weeks ago. Were they? I nodded to Jessica, who pressed a button. Through the security feed, we watched Michael's face pale as every screen in the lake house office suddenly lit up, playing footage of his secret meetings. You see, Michael, I continued, when you told me those cameras were too expensive to maintain, I had them upgraded instead. HD quality, crystal clear audio. Perfect for documenting corporate espionage. You bit. He started, but I cut him off. Language, Michael. Remember, you're being recorded. I could hear things being knocked over as he frantically searched the room for cameras. Oh, and those tacky decorations Madison wants to get rid of? The artwork you're stealing is listed as corporate property. That's documented felony theft. A crash came through the phone. Michael had apparently found one of the hidden cameras. But it was too late. We had everything we needed. One more thing, I added, my voice turning to ice. That custody filing? Check the timestamp on the security footage. You were plotting corporate theft while Lily was in the house. No judge will look kindly on that. The phone went dead. They're trying to wipe the security footage remotely. Jessica called out. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, racing against time. I'm backing everything up to secure servers, but they're good. They've got professional help. Hold them off, I said firmly, glancing at the baby monitor where I could see Lily still sleeping peacefully upstairs. Just then, my phone buzzed with a new email notification from Michael. Thought you should know, I've filed for sole custody, the message read. A social worker will be visiting Lily's daycare tomorrow for an initial evaluation. Don't bother trying to interfere, the paperwork's already been processed. Attached was a court document with tomorrow's date. My blood ran cold as I read further. He was claiming I was emotionally unstable and work-obsessed, using my own mother's history against me. Jessica, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Get Catherine on the line. Now. Already texting her the documents, Jessica replied, her face grim. But Lauren, there's something else. Madison just posted on Instagram, she's touring preschools with Michael. Elite private ones. She's talking about giving Lily the proper family environment she deserves. I felt my jaw clench. They weren't just trying to take my company, they were systematically working to erase every trace of me from my daughter's life. Just like my father had tried with my mother. The baby monitor crackled with Lily's soft breathing, reminding me of what was really at stake. This wasn't just about corporate takeovers or revenge anymore. This was about protecting my daughter from the same trauma I'd experienced. Jessica, keep backing up those security files, I ordered, already forming a plan. And call the daycare center. We need to warn them about what's coming. The next few hours would prove crucial, not just for my company, but for my daughter's future. And I was ready to fight with everything I had. Dawn was just breaking when I heard Lily stirring through the baby monitor. As I headed upstairs to get her, my phone lit up with an urgent text from the daycare director, Mrs. Bennett, someone's here trying to gain access to Lily's records. Claiming to be a social worker, but the credentials look suspicious. Catherine was already on her way to the center, but my instincts told me this was just the beginning. I dressed Lily with extra care, packing her favorite stuffed elephant and a change of clothes. Something in my gut said we wouldn't be coming home early today. All backed up and secured, Jessica reported as I came downstairs with Lily. But Lauren. Michael's lawyers just filed additional documents. They're requesting an emergency custody hearing. Today. I felt Lily's tiny arms tighten around my neck, as if she could sense the tension. On my laptop screen, the lake house security feed showed Michael and Madison arriving early, dressed formally. They weren't alone, Thomas and Barbara were with them, along with what looked like their entire legal team. They're going to ambush us at the daycare, I realized, watching them gather papers and files. Through the crystal-clear audio, I could hear their plans taking shape. Remember, Thomas was instructing, the social worker will document any emotional outburst. Lauren's proven she's unstable like her mother. We just need to push the right buttons. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. This wasn't just about custody anymore, they were trying to recreate my mother's breakdown, using my own history as their weapon. But they'd forgotten something crucial about that history. Jessica, I said quietly, shifting Lily to my hip as I reached for my mother's old briefcase, the one she'd carried to her own custody hearing years ago. Call Catherine. Tell her to meet us at the coffee shop near the daycare. And get me everything you can find about Thomas Reynolds' previous custody battles. His previous. Jessica's eyes widened as she caught on. Oh. The The Peterson case from last year? I nodded grimly. My mother had taught me more than just how to survive betrayal. She'd taught me how to recognize patterns. And Thomas had a very interesting pattern when it came to custody disputes in his family. Also, I added, checking that Lily's favorite songs were loaded on my phone, call Judge Harrison's office. Tell her she might want to review the Reynolds family's recent custody cases. Especially the ones involving corporate mergers. As I buckled Lily into her car seat, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I saw my mother's determination in my eyes, but something else too, a cold, calculated awareness that this generation of Bennetts wouldn't just survive. We would rewrite the ending. Ready for an adventure, baby girl? I asked Lily, who responded with her bright, innocent smile. She had no idea that today would determine not just her future, but break a cycle that had haunted our family for generations. The drive to the coffee shop was quiet, broken only by Lily's happy babbling to her stuffed elephant. In my mind, I could hear my mother's voice from years ago. The thing about patterns, Lauren, is that once you see them clearly, you can't unsee them. And once you understand them, you can break them, I whispered, pulling into the parking lot where Catherine was waiting. Catherine's expression told me she'd found something significant. But before she could speak, my phone buzzed with an alert from the daycare's security system. Michael and his entourage had arrived, right on schedule. The social worker they sent? Catherine said quietly as I lifted Lily from her car seat. She's Barbara's former assistant. Currently working for a private family services firm that the Reynolds family owns. Of course she is, I replied, adjusting Lily's tiny cardigan, the one my mother had knitted before she passed. And the emergency hearing judge? Judge Carlton. He's played golf with Thomas for 20 years. Catherine's voice was grim. They've thought of everything. Almost everything, I corrected, pulling out my mother's old briefcase. But they forgot to check who else Judge Carlton plays golf with. Inside the briefcase was a single photograph, my mother with a much younger Judge Carlton, both in law school graduation robes. She'd kept it all these years, along with detailed notes about every custody case she'd ever watched him preside over. Mom always said Carlton had one unbreakable rule, I explained, showing Catherine the notes. He wouldn't tolerate anyone using children as pawns in corporate games. Through the coffee shop window, we could see the daycare center's entrance. Madison was already there, perfectly styled in an expensive suit, clutching a file of documents. The social worker stood beside her, looking more like a corporate lawyer than a child welfare professional. They're going to try to provoke you, Catherine warned. Make you look unstable in front of witnesses. I nodded, watching Lily play contentedly with her stuffed elephant. I know. Just like they did to my mother. But there's one thing they don't understand about our family. What's that? We learn from our history. We don't just repeat it. I stood up, gathering Lily in my arms. Ready? The walk to the daycare felt like crossing a battlefield. Madison spotted us first, her rehearsed concerned expression already in place. Michael stood slightly behind her, trying to project paternal worry. The social worker had her notebook ready. But before any of them could speak, Catherine stepped forward with her own file. Judge Carlton would like to know why a private corporate investigator is impersonating a state social worker. He's particularly interested in the connection to the Peterson custody case from last year. The color drained from Madison's face. The Peterson case, where another young woman had mysteriously gained custody of her stepchild right before a major corporate merger. A case that had been sealed by the Reynolds family's influence. This is ridiculous, Michael started, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. We're only thinking of Lily's best interests. Really? I kept my voice calm, remembering my mother's lessons. Is that why you're wearing my grandmother's watch to an emergency custody hearing? His hand automatically went to the antique timepiece, another family heirloom he'd taken from the lake house. In that moment of confusion, Catherine struck. Your Honor, she called out, and everyone turned to see Judge Carlton himself walking across the parking lot. I believe you'll find these documents interesting. Especially the pattern of custody cases coinciding with Reynolds family business acquisitions. The next few minutes were chaos. Madison's carefully rehearsed speech dissolved into panic. The social worker tried to slip away but was stopped by a real child services investigator. And Michael finally showed his true colors. "You don't deserve her," he shouted, his corporate mask cracking. "You're just like your crazy mother, thinking you can run a business and raise a child." "Mr. Bennett," Judge Carlton's voice held decades of experience. "In my 40 years on the bench, I've seen many attempts to use children as pawns in adult games. Today's performance ranks among the most disturbing. Full custody is awarded to Lauren." The ornate courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Michael sat at the defendant's table, his expensive suit and perfectly styled hair a stark contrast to the cold fury spreading across his face. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle whir of the ceiling fans and Lily's soft breathing against my shoulder. "This is ridiculous." Michael shot up from his seat. "Mr. Bennett," Judge Carlton's voice cut through the outburst like steel. "One more word and you'll be held in contempt. Your own actions have demonstrated exactly why this decision is necessary." I watched as Michael's face contorted, years of hidden resentment finally surfacing. "You'll regret this," he hissed in my direction. "You think you're so strong, so capable." "Remove Mr. Bennett from my courtroom," Judge Carlton ordered, and I watched as 2 officers stepped forward. As they led him out, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before, the desperate rage of a man who had finally lost control of his carefully scripted narrative. Madison, who had been watching from the gallery in her designer suit, tried to slip out quietly. "Miss Reynolds," Judge Carlton called out, stopping her in her tracks. "The court has not dismissed you. Your attempt to impersonate a social worker and gain unauthorized access to a minor will be addressed in criminal proceedings next week." I watched as her perfectly composed facade crumbled. But I was just following Michael's instructions. He said it was all legal." "Save it for your own hearing," the judge cut her off sharply. As she was led away by a court officer, her eyes met mine briefly, filled with the same shocked realization I'd seen in Michael's, that their carefully constructed plan had not just failed, but backfired spectacularly. Lily, secure in my arms, reached out to touch the polished wood of the judge's bench. Even in this tense moment, her innocent curiosity brought a smile to my face. This was what really mattered, this tiny person who trusted me to protect her world. That evening, as I tucked Lily into her crib in our newly secured home, I noticed something that made my heart catch. She had arranged her stuffed animals in a protective circle around her favorite elephant, the one constant in her changing world. Even at her young age, she understood something about creating safe spaces. "We're going to be okay, baby girl," I whispered, touching the soft curls of her hair. "Better than okay." The next few weeks brought healing changes. The lake house, now legally returned to my possession, became our weekend sanctuary. I redesigned it, erasing the traces of Madison's brief occupation. But some things I kept, like the security cameras that had proved so crucial. They would tell a different story now, one of healing and new beginnings. One sunny Saturday morning, as Lily and I were having breakfast on the lake house deck, Jessica arrived with a surprising delivery, boxes of old photos and documents my mother had stored away. Among them was her diary from the years after my father left. "I should have done more," one entry read. "But I did what I could." And maybe that's the real victory, not letting them take your ability to love, to trust, to build something new from the ashes they left behind. I looked at Lily, happily mashing her banana, and understood what my mother meant. We weren't just surviving, we were building something stronger, something that couldn't be shaken by betrayal or false claims. Months passed, and our new routine took shape. Mornings began with Lily's delighted babbling through the baby monitor. Evenings ended with story time in our cozy reading nook. The house no longer felt haunted by Michael's betrayal, instead, it was filled with the sounds of our own happiness. One evening, as I sorted through more of my mother's belongings, I found an unfinished letter she'd written to me. "My darling daughter, there will be times when the world tries to make you choose between being strong and being gentle. Don't believe them. The strength that helps you stand up for yourself is the same strength that helps you build a loving home. The trick is remembering what really matters." I pinned that letter to my bedroom wall, right next to Lily's latest finger painting. Happiness, I was learning, had many definitions. Happiness, I was learning, had many definitions.